Hey there, everybody! Are you ready to have an amazing evening? Are you ready to get started with the More presentation? The More. I'll be letting you know soon why I called it the More, or I'll forget. I don't know. But either way, my plan is not to do it now. It's funny. I want you to all to know, though, the great thing about doing things when you're doing live events from your office is that you never necessarily know where the technology is going to go. And so I started the presentation just a little while ago and realized that I did not click the button that said go live. And have you ever had one of those situations where you're like on the phone and you're really getting into a deep conversation with somebody and you go on and on and on, and finally you wonder why they're not responding, and all of a sudden you realize that well, the phone went dead or you lost the connection? Okay. Well, I had one of those moments. I mean, when you do these webinars, you're always worried whether or not someone's actually going to show up. And it's, the feeling that has already swept over me because I didn't show up. Anyway, you know what? Tonight is going to be a great night. I'm really glad that you could join me. I know people are still settling in right now, but I just want you to know that this webinar is one that I have presented in different ways, but I've never presented this actual webinar before. So I am so pumped. And I have worked so hard to make sure that all the information I'm sharing with you tonight is going to resonate, is going to have a big impact on your life. So a couple of little housekeeping notes that I want to throw out there really, really quickly before I forget is that I really encourage you to eliminate any distractions that you might have, okay? Because it's the problem with these online webinars, now that we've gone virtual because of the pandemic, is that we now find ourselves in a situation where it's so easy to check your cell phone. It's so easy to just get up and go get something from the refrigerator. Whereas, let's face it, when you were at a live event, you had to kind of sit there. Even if you weren't listening, you had to pretend that you were listening. And so when you do these online events now, it really is up to you. You don't have your boss looking at you anymore. You don't have the pressure from other audience members to not check your cell phone. And you don't have the speaker actually looking right at you. So all of a sudden now these online webinars has put this new pressure on the audience that never used to exist. And that is the pressure of disciplining yourself to pay attention. Okay, so easy things to do. Number one, okay, this is gonna make you feel really uncomfortable, but that is turn your cell phone off. Don't just put it away, don't flip it over, literally just power down. All right, just power that damn thing down right now. I recognize the idea of doing that makes you feel that need like you've got to run to the washroom, or it makes you feel like you might throw up, which also, if you're in the right setting, should take you to the washroom. Either way, try it out. Just power down your phone, because that way you will not be distracted. The other thing you can do is close the door or take the laptop to a space where no one is going to be able to interrupt you, okay? The other thing that you can do, I said it in the email earlier on today, is to put headphones on. If you're watching this by yourself and not with other people, which is also another way of saying not by yourself or with yourself or whatever, I'm just glad that you're here. Put some headphones in, all right, or your fingers, both work just as well. And when you do that, it really is just a great way of not being distracted, okay? The other thing, I know I said this in the email, but I know many of you perhaps find yourself in a situation where you don't read my emails, all right? Welcome to the life of my family. So what I was saying in the email is that it's important to have a pen and paper, because I'm going to be sharing all kinds of little nuggets of information tonight where you think you're going to remember everything, okay? I get it. You're convinced you're Rain Man, but you're not, okay? You're not going to remember everything because you're human. You're like me. And we think we're going to remember all these great ideas, or maybe it makes you remember something from the past that you think will just stick with you for hours and hours after this presentation. The truth is that if you're a regular person like myself, it doesn't always stick with us. So you're going to want to keep jotting notes down so that you can come back to those later. So grab a pen and paper right now, or if you've got your laptop, your computer, you can also open up a Word document and put it in there. I want to just make sure, though, that I'm going to be doing everything I can to interact with you guys, to have as much fun with you guys as I possibly can. This is a big night for me, because at the end of tonight's presentation, I'm actually going to be sharing something with you that I have been working on for, well, basically the entire pandemic. And it is a night where, after thinking about what I wanted to do next and what we wanted to do in the year 2021, this is it. This is that moment. I recognize for you, it might be just a regular Monday night, But for me, like, this is one of those things where I am so pumped about what it is that I'll be sharing with you at the end of this presentation, because I genuinely believe that what I have created will literally change the course of your night, your life, not your night. It's got like a bandwidth of 30 minutes. I've worked on this for a year, and it will change 30 minutes of your life. Okay, no, I'm kidding. It's going to change. It really will change your life, and you'll hear more about that later on. It's also called the More and More. So, okay, for those of you who kept asking, why are you calling this thing the More and More? Do you realize that it just looks like a typo, that you put more twice? No, I'm not. The reason I call this the More and More in my new organization, the More and More, is because I've always been a big believer, and I feel like you feel the same way too, that there's just more to life. And I'll be talking about that in a second. And whenever people come up to me at the end of my corporate presentations and they say, I don't know what it is, I just feel like there's more to life, I'm always coming back to those people and saying, yeah, you know what? You're right. There is more to life. But guess what? There's even more than the more that you think there is to life. And that's where I got the idea to call this the More. I mean, if that doesn't make you realize that you're in the company of genius, I don't know what will do it for you. But seriously, folks, it is something that I try to share with people as I speak around the world about the idea that there's so much more going on. And if you just let yourself feel it and tap into it and actually see it, you will be amazed at what kind of impact it can have on you. Okay, so a couple other things I want to just get out there. I know that a lot of you do know who I am because you came through my database, and so for that reason, you've seen my work in the past. But for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Stuart Knight. Happy New Year. And I am a man who is 47 years old, living in the city of Toronto with my family. I've got 2 young kids, and one is 5, one is 3. Yeah. Okay, if you're ever going to do a pandemic, make sure you get a couple of toddlers. Oh, yeah, that makes it easy to build a company. And my partner, of course, lives here as well. And the 4 of us run our business, we run our lives, and we love the city of Toronto. For the last 25 years, I've been a professional speaker. I've traveled around the world speaking to now over 1 million people. In that time, I've written a few books. I've hosted radio shows, TV shows, and all those kinds of different things. And everything I've ever done, whether it's producing an event or whether it's getting on stage live to speak to people, has always been about the idea of getting people to boycott what they thought, to boycott their old way of thinking on a bunch of different topics and embrace a new way of thinking. And the reason I do that is because I feel like, for the most part, we have been fed, myself included, a lot of lies or a lot of information that's not necessarily going to set us up for the greatest level of happiness that we deserve. And so I've really dedicated my life to that, because when I was 19 years old, I read my very first motivational book. And for the very first time, somebody was telling me that ordinary people can have extraordinary experiences. And I had never been told that before. And I kind of found myself at the age of 19 thinking, well, I'm an ordinary guy, so maybe like I could do extraordinary things. And ever since then, I've always just kind of dabbled in the extraordinary. I've tried all these different things that seem out of my reach. They seem implausible. They seem that for a guy like me, that shouldn't be something that I have. And yet, when you get it, you start realizing that all it is just a bunch of rules that other people have created. And we choose whether or not we want to live by those rules. And I have a feeling that many of you over the year 2020, during the pandemic, have really had a lot of moments to reflect on those kinds of things and reflect on what it is that I'm saying here. You've probably found yourself thinking, is this it? Is this my life? You know, because what happened with the pandemic, the best thing ever is that press pause. It paused us so that we stopped for 5 seconds and said, is this the way I want to go? Is this the trajectory of my life? Plus, we've looked back at our lives and we've said, is that something to be proud of? Am I happy with the way that my life turned out? Am I happy with the decisions that I've made or the mistakes I've made? And so I love this pandemic because it's pausing us and allowing us to just stop and think about life. And I've been doing a lot about that, a lot of thinking myself. And I've been really thinking about, you know, how while I've lived a life that has brought me great joy and created a life that's brought me great joy, I, just like anyone else, have new targets that I want to reach. And I also want to take people with me. Because nothing saddens me more when I see other individuals who are living a life that is not the life that they want to live, or living a life that is not allowing them to reach the highest levels of happiness and success. And that's one thing I want to get really clear on tonight. I don't have a bunch of losers who have all tuned into this. That's not who you are. Everyone who's watching this right now, you are successful. You have a good family in many cases. Many of you are in good relationships. You've got good friends. You've managed to pay your rent on time, to pay your mortgage on time. This is not about having people come here who are like, oh, it's so depressed and they're so unhappy that they're looking for some sort of spark to get them out of their funk. That might be true for some people, but for most of you, I gather that even in the midst of a happy life, even in the midst of a successful life, you felt like there is more. And I want to get us talking about that tonight and thinking about what that is. Okay, so once in a while, I'll say things that it might make you want to comment. Well, by all means, completely comment. I'll try to comment on your comments if I have time. As well, share your own thoughts from time to time, because it's a conversation amongst all of us. In fact, I want to get that clear too, because this is not a webinar. I'm calling it a webinar because I know that people know what webinars are. But to me, a webinar is like something that teaches you how to become better at using programs like Excel or Microsoft Word. Great things for some people, but this is, to me, it's not a webinar, but rather it's a conversation tonight. Okay, a conversation. That's why I want you to settle in, breathe deeply, to just relax, and to just think about what it is that I'm saying and whether or not there's something true in here for you, and whether or not there's action that you could actually take upon what it is that I'm saying to you tonight, okay? And I want you to know that if you choose to take action on what it is that I'm saying tonight, your life will change. And I'm smiling because I always get a kick out of that when I, send out advertisements for a webinar that I'll be doing or a conversation I'll be having. And one of the things I'll say is that, this is a chance to change your life. And a lot of people, they'll actually won't even show up because I said that. They're like, well, it's impossible to change my life in watching just one webinar. That's not going to happen. And this is just the paradigm thinking that people get so locked into, is that the reality is that changing your life is actually very, very easy. And if you just got that when someone says that you can change your life, it shouldn't actually stop you from showing up. It should actually make you show up. And I mean, think about it, right? Like, you could cut sugar out of your life now and forever, and it would have a humongous impact on your life. And it's actually pretty easy to do that. And I know people right now are like, are you kidding me? They're eating a great big, brownie as they're hearing me say that. You know what? It is easier than you think. I mean, people survived World War II. You could survive, dropping a little bit of sugar from time to time. Or you could introduce meditation, like literally just 15 minutes of meditation every single morning into your life. That would change your life. That's easy to do. Like literally just closing your eyes and breathing deeply and going through thoughts of gratitude. Like just doing that for 15 minutes a day would have a dramatic impact on your life. Anyway, the whole point is that change is easier than you think, and changing your life is easier than you think. And so tonight, I want you to go into this presentation with that belief system, that belief that this actually could be that moment that literally changes the course of your life. I mean, imagine that. How cool would that be? I mean, and I know there have been times in your life where you got that like really amazing job, or you met that really amazing person, and you look back on that particular day, and you remember like thinking to yourself, it's so funny, I would have never believed that I was going to meet the person that I fell in love with, or that I was going to find my dream job on that day when it just felt like a regular day, like any other day. And here we are on a Monday, January 4th, 2021, that feels like just a regular day, but it could be the day where your life changes. And so if you go into it with that attitude, it opens you up to greater possibilities. At the end of this, like I said, stick around. I'm going to be sharing something with you for those who are really serious, for those who really want to go to the next level, for those who really want 2021 to be something that's different than any other year they've had. Because what I am going to be introducing to you at the end of tonight's presentation is a new company that you can get involved with if you choose to. And it's a company that is dedicated to increasing your levels of happiness and increasing your levels of success. Okay, so tonight really is about happiness. I'm just going to turn my fan on here. I don't know about you, but I am hot. Always wanted to say that to a lot of members out there in their homes. It's so much safer when you're by yourself. Okay, so let's talk about happiness for a second. Happiness is one of those things that I know you've heard about, right? I mean, you've read articles about the things you need to do to be happier, or you've had conversations about this perhaps with friends, or maybe you've even had somebody come into your company and they've done a happiness webinar, which is all really great. But you see, it took me a long time in my life. So I've been a full-time entrepreneur now for about 25 years. And like I said, I've been on this planet for 47 years. And in that time, I've really had to learn what happiness is for me and what it is for basically everybody else. First of all, happiness is a moving target. It's not just one thing that you do any given day. On one day, your happiness might be part of your spiritual life and something you have to do there. And the next day or the next week or the next month, happiness might have something to do with your intellectual life or your relational life. And so we're always kind of having to check in with ourselves in order to ask ourselves, what is it that I need to do in order to be happier and to be more fulfilled and to lead a more meaningful life? Because life is really short, isn't it? I mean, if you think about it, I've always imagined about how short our lives are. And we don't think about that very often because most people don't even want to think about death. They're afraid of that. And for those who aren't afraid of death, they're just too busy. They don't think about how short their life actually is. You know, one of my favorite examples of how short life actually is they said that if you could look at the human body and imagine that the entire human body represents the entire history of time since the planet Earth began. If you were to take a nail file and just go across your nail once, the amount of nail that you would take off, just the nail file, just once, would be the amount of time that's equivalent to the amount of time that all of humanity has existed. Not just you, all of humanity. And so that really puts things into perspective about how short our lives are. And to me, that's not something to be afraid of, but rather something to get excited about, because like it kind of gives you permission to be like, I'm just going to stop worrying about stupid shit. I'm going to start actually taking action that's going to change my life. Now, before I got to a point where I finally started understanding what happiness really is and how it works, I was one of those individuals, just like many people watching this, who had this idea growing up when I was young. I was a teenager. I was thinking, oh, well, happiness is going to be success. It's going to be, fame, or it's going to be making lots of money, for example. And, I've been able to experience a certain level of that and realize that in most cases, it's not that. Like I remember the first time, for example, when I got my very first paycheck for speaking. And I didn't understand. I come from a family that's a very working class family. My parents are immigrants. When they came to this country, they had $150 in their pockets. Okay. And so my father's first home in Canada was actually a tent. Okay. He lived on a campground until he could get enough money to get an apartment. Eventually, my parents had 3 boys. And for us, the biggest thing was just to go to university. If you could get a college or university education, you've done something that so many people have never done before. And so that was where our focus was always being pushed toward when we were sitting at the dinner table. So for me, money, you can imagine not having it as a child would be where my focus would be at. So the very first time I got my very first paycheck speaking at an event, I remember walking out into the parking lot with my brother. And I was with my brother because I couldn't afford my own car and I needed my brother to drive me to the presentation. And just before we got into the car, I pulled out the check. I looked at him. I'm like, hey, Jeffrey, check it out. Huh? $500. $500. $500. My heart was racing. Oh my God, I was so excited. We jumped in the car. What did I do? I'm a high roller, obviously. I've got $500 in my pocket. Took my brother to Eastside Mario's. Took him to Eastside Mario's, told him he could have anything on the menu he wanted. Right? Pretty cool. So this is what brought me a certain level of happiness in that moment. But of course, I woke up the next day and that happiness was no longer there. It was a short moment of excitement, really. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then, fast forward as my speaking career grew over the years and many, many years later, decades later, I got to that point where I would be paid $5,000 for a 1-hour speech. And the very first time you get paid $5,000, you're like, Jesus Christ, this is amazing. I just got $5,000 for a speech. And you feel pretty excited, but then of course it goes away. And then eventually my career grew to the point where I would, quite regularly be able to charge people $10,000 for a 1-hour speech. And now, be very clear, folks, I am not sharing this to impress you, okay? I'm sharing this to really give you a real life example of what's happened in my life and to show you how what I thought would bring me happiness didn't. It got to the point where once I would start getting these checks for $10,000 to speak, while I very much appreciated it and I loved my job and it allowed me to put food on the table, the reality is that it never really got me as happy as that time that I've got the $500. It made me a little bit, it brought me a little bit of joy, but not like the first time that I got the first check. And so that was where I realized that, this doesn't bring you happiness. And there's lots of research on this. Money will, as long as you can pay your bills and have a certain type of lifestyle, it does bring you happiness, but it caps out on average for most people around $75,000 a year, depending on whether or not you live in a small town or whether you live in a city. It fluctuates one way or the other. I used to also think it was about, fame and having people look at me and cheer for me and tell me that I was doing a great job, giving me all kinds of great accolades. And so, of course, just like the paycheck of $500, the very first time that I had my very first standing ovation, I was like, oh, this feels really good. And then guess what? I get back into the car and the feeling goes away. And then you get another one and you get another one and you get used to that too. And so that would be, something that I thought was going to bring me happiness. Another example, the last example I'll give you is I used to think that if I was associating with the right kinds of people, right? If I knew the right, maybe some famous people, if I was like in with a cool crowd, that would make me feel joy. And I remember that, as my career started to blossom, many years ago, and I was put into a situation where I could now spend time with these kinds of people, it wasn't bringing me that much more happiness. It, in fact, wasn't bringing me any more happiness because I kept going back to the way I felt the day before. In fact, I'll never forget one time when I went out for dinner with Martin Short. As many of you know, famous Canadian actor, someone who I idolize, okay? I was doing a gig in Vegas, and then the way the evening unfolded, Martin and myself and two other people ended up going out and having dinner together. It was Valentine's Day. It was pretty hilarious. And we got tipsy together. We had a crazy evening together. And I would have thought, oh, this is it. This is where now I finally get happy again, even happier. And just like I've been giving you these other examples, the next day you wake up and it's gone. And so it really is always, with all these moments in my life, reminded me that there's got to be something more to life. And my question to you as my first question tonight is, have you felt that way? Have you felt like there is something more out there? And if you have, put it into the comments section. Just say, yes, I have. And don't be shy about that, okay? Because for you to say, oh, I've never felt like there's anything more, I don't know. I think it's possible that you might be lying to yourself. But, just say, whatever it might be that you're feeling. Have you felt like there's more to life? Have you felt like there's more for you to be able to embrace and more change for you to experience? Has there been more adventure for you to have been had? Is there more that you should have been able to get out of the big categories of your life? What are those things? So Andrea Howe saying yes. Beth saying yes. Janet saying yes. Thank you very much. This is perfect. Marion, great. Barb, Cecile. You know what? She's saying, I constantly feel that way. I think many people who are watching this presentation do. And I know that for me, I've really felt that throughout my life, especially when I look at the really big categories of life. Okay, like take, for example, career. I grew up in a world where my parents wanting the best for myself and my two brothers would always, steer us in the direction of having a good, solid career, one that gave us good paychecks, one that gave us good benefits. I love them for that. There's nothing wrong with doing that for your child and wanting that for your child. But I always felt growing up that there might be more. And I remember when I went to university, I started living in a house in year 2 of my university years with 9 guys. 9 guys living in one house. It was disgusting. It was horrible. I mean, we literally played Jenga with the garbage every single day. No one would throw it out. And so we had, all these dreams, and we'd sit around having coffee and beers and talk about our future lives. And then fast forward to when we graduated, half of the guys in my house all went off and did jobs that their parents did. They went and did the exact same jobs, in this case, that their fathers did. If those guys are watching right now, I love you, okay? I have no judgment for those men doing what they chose to do, because those men all have actually really great jobs today. They all make at least $250,000, if not more, a year. That salary allows them to have a certain type of lifestyle. They get to travel. They get to provide a certain lifestyle for their family. So I get it. I don't begrudge them at all. But I always remember thinking that was, I thought, improbable. It seemed improbable that 9 guys living in a house over 4 years having exposure to all these different ideas, that half of us would end up going on and doing the same thing that our fathers did. And it's interesting now because there's this one gig that I have pre-pandemic where there is a university that I get asked to speak at every single year. And years later, I'm now seeing what I saw with my household when I was in school unfold, and it's shown to me in my face when I go and speak at this university. So it's, I won't say the name of the university. They're a fantastic university, fantastic people. And they bring me in to speak to this audience, and they're all finance and accounting students. And I'm always the opening keynote at the beginning of the year. And so it's a big, huge lecture hall. It's 500 young students all wearing their suits. They're adorable. They look amazing. And yet, when I'm looking at these 500 faces, about 90% of them are Asian. All right, now this is where people start feeling uncomfortable, all right? We live in the world where we got to be very politically correct as to what we say. Be clear, that's not racist to say that. That's just an observation. Each year that I speak at this organization, it's always the same. 500 people in the audience, 90% of them Asian. Okay, so what does that tell me? Well, the first thing I always want to say to the audience is, really? Before I get into my presentation tonight, really? Like, all of you wanted to become accountants? All of you. Like, none of you like painting? None of you like music? I get that some of you really love numbers, but all of you? And look, anybody who's Asian who's watching this right now, I guarantee you is laughing. They're laughing because they know, yes, that's what it's like to grow up in an Asian culture. Your parents quite often will direct you in one of 2, 3, 4 different ways. Some Asian parents, of course, don't do that. But for the most part, culturally speaking, it's not an uncommon thing for people of that culture to push their children towards certain types of things that has been successful within that culture. I don't blame the parents for doing it. There's lots of industries that you can look at where this happens, right? You look at the film industry. It's predominantly a very large number of people who are producers in film are Jewish, or they're directors, or they are, they're people who are behind the scenes. In many cases, they're also actors too. But like, there's a lot of Jewish people. Anyone who's a Jewish person right now will tell you that that's absolutely true. However, I know that from my Jewish friends that the first thing that they'll tell me is like, oh, don't forget becoming a dentist, becoming a doctor, becoming a lawyer. And I joke about this with my Jewish friends as well. And the fact is that whether you're Jewish, whether you're Asian, whether you're South Asian, whether you are a black person, a white person, it doesn't matter. The cultures that we come from quite often push us into certain types of careers. And these kinds of careers, while they are amazing careers, they can't possibly be for everyone. And they can't possibly be so much for one particular culture that I see that kind of representation year in, year out. And guess what? A lot of these young Asian students, they come up to me at the end of my presentations and they say to me the same thing. They say, I don't even want to become an accountant. And my heart goes out for them. I feel so sad, not just for the kids in this program, but I feel sad for anybody who's doing anything that they don't really want to do. And so I've always felt like there's more when it comes to career. Another good example of that is travel. Okay, so when it comes to travel, I've really felt that with all the places to go to in the world, I've often been surprised by how often people will either go back to the same place over and over again, or they're very limited in the kinds of risks they'll take with their travel. And they'll say to them, oh, no, this kind of travel brings me great happiness. I have no doubt that it does. However, I'm here to say that I think there's more options that might bring you greater happiness. In fact, a good friend of mine, Kasuki, her and I were scuba diving not too long ago, a few years ago, over in Dominican Republic. And this is an example of what I'm talking about. And we went out in this boat, and there was like 2 other people that were on the boat with us. It was a very short, a small dive. And the other couple was this lovely couple from Winnipeg. And they were telling us they dive here all the time. They come back every single year. You're gonna love it. They couldn't stop talking about how amazing this diving experience was going to be. So Kasuki and I were like, oh yeah, perfect. This is great because we love diving. We're both advanced divers. So we get out there, we jump in the water, we go down for 45 minutes, we come back up, and the 2 of us are on the boat. Now we're heading to our next dive. And the 2 of them are, the couple from Winnipeg are like, wasn't that amazing? Wasn't that so cool? And we were looking at them and we both just said, so like, have you ever like gone diving like anywhere at all else? And they're like, well, like we did like Mexico, like once, and that's it. I'm like, but what about anywhere else? No. And I'm like, no, I haven't. And for the two of us, we've gone diving in places like Egypt and Israel and Thailand and places where you see amazing stuff. And we were thinking, that's probably the shittiest dive I've ever done in my life. And we just really wanted more for these people. And we realized they were living in such a paradigm perspective and such a tunnel vision. And so I even emailed the couple because I got their email and I said, I gave them links to all these other great dives when I came back to Canada because I felt bad. I'm like, there's a whole world to see out there. You got to expand yourself. The last example I'll give of this is love. I've always been amazed at how pigeonholed and the tunnel vision that we have when it comes to love, and about how we feel like love can only show up in our lives in one way. And when I mean love, I'm talking about intimate, romantic relationships here. So I know a lot of people who feel actually depressed because they're not in a relationship with somebody else. And it breaks my heart to see that because I know that they have been force-fed this idea that happiness is found in being in a relationship. And by the way, that is true. You can be very happy in a relationship. However, you can be just as happy outside of a relationship. It doesn't make you happier than the single people. And in many cases, it's the opposite. We all know that one, don't we, sometimes? Point is that when we look at marriage, how often have you ever stopped and said to yourself, how did marriage even start in the first place? Okay, well, there's a lot of historical data that will show you this, and that most of marriage began in one of two ways. The first was just rich families trying to pool their resources. So it was a smart move strategically to bring the boy and the girl, the man and the woman, bring them together. So you bring two fortunes together as opposed to having two separate fortunes. The other major reason that marriage began was because of the agricultural revolution. Quite frankly, people saw winter coming and realized, I'm going to be better off surviving this thing with a partner. And so marriage began from that perspective too. Now, I know there are other reasons, but those are the two big reasons as why marriage began in the first place. And now it's turned into this thing that we've all felt we have to do a certain way. Like, I mean, even the diamond ring, that's great if you've got one, but the diamond ring does not symbolize love. Okay, the diamond ring is literally just a symbol that we have created. In fact, it was created by De Beers, I believe in the 1940s, where they went to movie moguls and they said to them, would you start please having scenes in your movies where somebody proposes with a wedding ring with a diamond in it? And the reason they did that was because they were looking for creative ways to get people to buy diamonds. Okay, so people are out there not feeling happy because they don't have diamonds, or not feeling happy because they're not in the right relationship of love. And I'm just here to say there is so many other ways of looking at love, and we've got to expand our minds. And so I really want to get you thinking about that. Even myself, I'm not married. I'm in a relationship where I call my partner, and she says the same about me. I'm amazed at how many people I have met over time who really get freaked out about that. Oh, your partner, right? Your business partner? You're talking about your business partner? Right? Oh yeah, I mean, don't you mean your wife? Isn't she your wife? And I'm like, well, no, I think you have to get married. I think you got to go and get married, like to be husband and wife. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an accountant on marriage, but this is a thing that people quite often, even that freaks them out. They're so attached to their definition of love. Anyways, let's move on. The whole point is that I'm giving these examples about career and about love and about travel, but the same is true about where you live, how much money you make, whether you have kids or don't have kids. Like the list is endless of all the things that we're doing and the decisions that we're making that are actually steering us away from ultimate happiness because of what we have learned elsewhere. And there are four big culprits when it comes to this, okay? There are four big things that we need to think about when we really want to analyze who has basically been stealing some of our happiness from us and what has been stealing his happiness from us, okay? So everyone's still good? Everyone's still with me? All right, go in the comment section and say, hallelujah, all right? Just say hell yeah, just say hell yeah, all right? There are four culprits that I want to speak about right now that really get in the way of us having the amount of happiness that we truly deserve. There are people in our personal lives, it's society in general, it's the media, and it's education. Those are the four culprits that have, for many of us, really stopped us from having the life that we deserve. And if we really want to have the life that we deserve, we literally have to take a look back at the role that those four things have played in our lives in order to put us even in the slightest fighting position to do anything about it. Okay, so I'm going to go through these quickly. I'm going to talk about what these culprits have done to us. So the first one is your personal life. So these are your friends and these are your family members. Okay, the people that love you the most, the people that genuinely really care for your future. And they often will be the ones that steal our happiness from us, not knowing it. Okay, they really don't even know they're doing it. So you can't even get mad at them for doing it. And it's a cycle that continues. Their parents did it to them. Their friends did it to them. Their parents' parents and their parents' friends and all those people did it to them. And it's just been trickling down the line and it's landed on your lap. The first thing that people in our personal lives will do is that they will try to steer us away from things that could cause pain. So what they'll do is they'll suggest an easier path. They'll say, well, you know what, that career is really great, but this probably is a smarter move for you. It feels like it's more aligned with the kind of person that you are. What they're really saying is your chances of going bankrupt that way are way higher, and I love you, so I don't want that for you, so I think maybe this is the better route to go. They might say something like, you know what, I love your idea about moving to Australia. That's really, really great. But I mean, they've got sharks in Australia and snakes in Australia. And what they're really saying is I love you so much. First of all, I don't want to see you go. And secondly, really and truly, I really feel like you have a greater chance of building a better life here in Canada or whatever country that you happen to live in. So they do it out of love. That's the first way that people will steer us away from what would bring us ultimate happiness and steer us towards something that brings us pretty good happiness, okay? The second thing that people in our personal lives do, which once again, they don't know they're doing it, so don't start hating on people after I tell you this, okay? Second thing that they do is they will actually steer us away from what will bring us ultimate happiness because deep down in the belly, they do not want to be reminded of the things that they didn't do with their life. They do not want a mirror to be put in front of them that says, well, if this person who I know really well intimately goes out there and has an amazing relationship, has an amazing career, has a life filled with adventure, well, then what does that say for me? And they don't realize that that's something that they're trying to protect, which is their ego. They don't realize they're doing it. And so what they'll do is they'll say, well, you know what? I don't know. You think that's really the best option for you? Because I mean, there's things that could go wrong. And I knew a guy one time who tried that too. And I don't know, it didn't go really well for him. And so we start hearing these stories and we start getting scared and we change our mind. We don't go down that path. So they'll do it because they love us and they know what they're doing in some cases. And they'll do it most often when they don't know they're doing it, okay? And what ends up happening is that we end up like literally feeling shame. We actually love those people so much that we will suspend our level of joy and our level of happiness because we don't want them to feel bad. We don't want to make them somebody that didn't live out their dreams. So we might say, well, I don't want to go out there and make too much money because if I make too much money, then I'm kind of telling my parents that they weren't good enough and that they didn't have what it takes to make this much money. So I'll just downplay my joy. I'll just downplay my success so that I don't make other people feel uncomfortable. And almost always, if you've done this, you're doing it completely unconsciously. You don't even know you're doing it. So that's the first culprit. People in our personal lives don't even know they're doing it. They're steering us away from success. The second culprit is just general society. Okay, so these are the people that you're interacting with a lot more than you actually probably think because you think it's not that big of a deal. But this is the bank teller that you chat with as you're making a deposit. This is the parent that you chat with shortly as you're both dropping off your kids at the same school. These are your coworkers. These are your customers, your clients. These are neighbors. Okay, these are people who in your life you're constantly chatting with, and unbeknownst to them, they have bought into this conversation of mediocrity. This conversation of that there's only enough, there's only so much time, right? And it comes up on a Monday when you say, hey, how was your weekend to your neighbor? And they'll say, oh, you know what? Never enough time in the weekend. Yeah, it goes by so fast. Here I am back to Monday. Total message that says the weekend is where it's fun. That's where I'm happy. Monday, it's impossible to be happy on. Or you'll be speaking to somebody on a Friday. Okay, this could be a fellow parent or a coworker. You're speaking on a Friday, like, thank God the weekend is here. Woo! Weekend is here. The week, I got through the week to get to the weekend. And we get this message that, once again, happiness is limited and there's only a certain amount of time for it. You could be speaking to the bank teller, and the bank teller makes some sort of joke like, well, you know what, one of these days I'll eventually retire from here, and then I can start, get that boat and sail away. Once again, sending a message that says, once you get through the work, once you get through the life, once the kids move out, that's when you can be happy. And we're constantly being given messaging that says happiness is limited, the world is difficult, it's a hard world to live in, and there's only a certain amount of time available for happiness, and it doesn't happen during the week, and it doesn't happen for most people. And this messaging from society, if you hear something enough times, it eventually sticks. The third culprit, okay? We feeling this? We're getting there now. The third culprit, this is big stuff, okay? Now, by the way, if you're finding yourself feeling, oh my God, I'm tired from the end of the day, I gotta go get myself a glass of wine, I'm gonna have a 13th one today. Stick with this. This is important stuff, okay? You gotta make sure you're taking notes. Everything I'm talking about right now, all of it are things that you could be writing down as bullet points. Something will resonate. Third culprit, the media. The media, I mean, think about the amount of media and news you consume. I mean, you're listening to it on the radio while you drive your car. You're watching it on TV at night. You're repeating it when you're having conversations with your friends. You're reading the news while you sit in the can. It's always there. I mean, some of you right now are watching this presentation on the can while watching the news. All right, one message for you: lay off the carbs. Holy moly. You don't have to spend that much time. It really should go much faster. So the media, though, we're continuously consuming the media. What does the media do? The media continuously sends us negative messages. I know you've heard this, but have you thought about what role it plays in the level of happiness that you have? Because listen, the media is not in the business. I mean, you can't blame them. They're not in the business of sharing good news. They're in the business of sharing, for the most part, bad news. I mean, think about it. If you're in a media outlet and you have a story between the sports star who goes out there and lives out their dreams, they have a good life, they provide for the family, they play basketball for 5 or 6 years, and then they live a pretty good life, they start a t-shirt company. I mean, that story compared to the person who goes out there and they become the big sports star, and then they get addicted to drugs and to gambling, and then they got all kinds of different girlfriends and they get into fist fights at bars. Which one do you think you're going to sell to the public? It's the other story. That's the one that they believe the public wants to hear, and based on the revenue dollars they get, it's usually true. Or think about famous people who are in relationships. What's the story that's going to sell? The one where the relationship, is pretty normal, where they go, they get married, they have a few kids, and they buy a house, and they live happily ever after? Or the one where it's the breakup, it's the big ending, it's the everything went bad, they had kids, or they had a miscarriage? That's the stuff that people will print. Same is true for lottery winners. Do you hear about the lottery winner that just goes out and wins the lottery and just lives their life for the rest of their life? Or do you hear about the lottery winner who wins the lottery and then commits suicide because of the pressure that came on from having all that money? One sells and one doesn't. And so the media is constantly sending messages to us. And for many people that don't realize, they're consuming hours of it a day that says, life is difficult, things go badly for people most of the time. Even if you do well, there's a chance there's going to be an earthquake. Even if you get ahead in life, there's a good chance someone's going to steal it from you. So even if you feel like you're happy, look at this person, they're addicted to drugs. Constant messaging from the media that says happiness is limited. It doesn't happen very often. There's no sense in trying because most likely you're going to lose it. And this is something that we need to wake up to. All right, let's move to the last one. Okay, this is a big one. I'm going to start speeding up a little bit. But I'm not going to speed up here, because this might be one of the biggest points I'm making in tonight's presentation. And that's kind of crazy if you think about how awesome all the other points have been, right? Right? So education has got to be, in my mind, one of the biggest fails of society. It's one of the biggest fails, and I include you and I include me in that. We have failed miserably in the opportunity that we have been given to educate people. You give all this time to adults to say, you can take these fresh minds and you can mold them into anything you want. And we say to them, perfect, sit them down and make them memorize Shakespearean soliloquies. Yeah, okay, of all the options, let's do that. Okay, go ahead, recite Shakespeare. And it's ridiculous. And because of this, most of what we're learning in school is absolutely useless. Okay, Shakespeare, he's a great playwright. I love a lot of his work, but guess what? Other people have written plays. Are we still doing only Shakespeare in school? Are we still only reading Of Mice and Men? Are we still reading Catcher in the Rye? I mean, come on. Do you know that statistically it's been proven that on average, you only remember 5% of what you actually ever learn in your entire scholastic career? Only 5%. And that is not a national crisis. People are going, oh, well, 5%, that's not so bad. No, that's horrible. I mean, could you imagine if, let's say, only 5% of all the brakes on all the cars on planet Earth actually worked? I think that we would be getting together and saying, this is bad, we need to make some changes. But when it comes to education, we just accept it. And the reason we accept it is because for many, many years, education and schools are just a place where parents drop their kids off to basically be babysat for most of the day so that they can go do things that they're not inspired by. And if there's anybody out there watching this right now who happens to be a teacher, I want you to understand, I'm not talking about the teachers. Okay, I have actually a brother and a sister-in-law who are both teachers. They're the kinds of teachers you actually want your kids to be learning from. They actually care. And many, many teachers, most teachers really do. There's only a few bad apples here and there. It's not the teachers, it's the system that we've created. We have equipped these teachers with nothing to make a real, true, significant difference, or at least the difference that they could be making in the lives of these children. You know, I saw a t-shirt not too long ago that really summed this up for me. A guy had a t-shirt on it that said, another day passed, and once again, I didn't use algebra. Now, is math a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing. We need to use math in our lives. However, we need to be looking at this and doing this so much differently because we are so missing the opportunity. And there's one thing that we miss above and beyond anything, and that is what the science and research is telling us. The science and research is saying beyond a shadow of a doubt, if you really want to be happy and if you want to have a meaningful life, there are certain areas that you really need to focus on. And you can pretty much guarantee that almost all of those areas are not taught in school. I mean, just take an example like finances. Finances aren't taught to kids about the importance of saving, the importance of investing, the importance of owning real estate. This isn't taught for the most part to children. And yet we know that research has shown that as we get older, one of the biggest stresses that we have in our lives is money. So if we could get to a point where we actually have enough money to pay our bills, that our stress levels decrease and our happiness increases. And this doesn't mean that money buys you happiness, but having enough money just to pay for a regular lifestyle, actually research shows that it does. And yet we're not taught these things in school. What's another example? Meditation. I already talked about that earlier on tonight. I cannot believe that meditation and being taught meditation is not mandatory in every single school around the world. In fact, there was a really great example of this where there was a jail in the United States where they, really got the inmates to start meditating and really getting into it. In this case, it was transcendental meditation. And they discovered that recidivism, I think that's the word, recidivism rates, which basically means those who get out of jail and then go back to jail because they commit another crime, dropped by 50%. So don't tell me that meditation doesn't do great things for people's lives. It decreases your stress. It decreases your anxiety. It helps you have greater gratitude. It brings you more connection with the universe. It drops your need to have an ego. All these great things come out of it. Do we teach it in school? No way. Why would we teach that? Or sex. Holy crap. Why do we not talk about sex? I mean, I'm not sure if you've ever tried it, but it's awesome. Okay. If you haven't, do it tomorrow. Okay. Because tonight you're going to just be in just, I don't know, some sort of euphoria from this presentation. But sex, what do we do when we talk about sex in high school or in elementary school? We don't tell people what to do. We just tell them everything not to do. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, and don't do that. As opposed to, this is the way you caress somebody. This is the way you love somebody. This is the way you ask for permission. Sex is an amazing thing. We should be doing it really, really well. And we're not taught how to do it really, really well. In fact, when I was in high school, Okay, this is going to be maybe too much information, but I'll never forget Mr. Myers. Okay, great guy, basketball teacher. He was my basketball coach. Comes in, he was teaching the sex education class. This was his sex education. He goes, all right, boys, listen up. So I've been told that I got to teach you guys sex ed. So, I guess if you ever pull your dick out and you look down and there's something on it that shouldn't be there, whack it across the desk, put it back in your pants, and go home. That was my education in high school about sex. Of course, all the boys laughed. We'd never heard our teacher talk like that. We thought it was so funny because we were so immature. But could you imagine if I would have been taught things differently? And these are just examples. I could go on and on for all the stuff that science and research talks about, things that we should be speaking about and learning in high school and in elementary school, and we're never learning it. And the number one thing that science and research has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, which is the number one marker towards a person's happiness, is human relationships and the importance of building powerful human relationships. And it's probably the number one thing that we do not teach in school. I mean, where you sat down, think about that when you were in school and said, okay, here's how you meet new people. And when you meet these new people, here's how you engage them in really interesting, meaningful, culturally driven, colorful conversations. Does anyone ever do that for you? No way. No one's ever teaching us these things. More specifically, have you ever had anybody who said to you, hey, listen, you know what? If you can actually engage new people in powerful conversations, you can actually increase your chances of opening up new adventures to yourself. No one ever said that to us. Or did anyone ever say to you, hey, look, if you engage people in powerful conversations, you can tap into the emotions of another individual, which then will make you more emotionally sound as an individual. No one ever taught us that. And the examples go on and on. No one ever said, hey, you know what? If you really have powerful conversations with other individuals, and let me teach you exactly how to do it, well, then you can use that in your life to be able to create opportunities that would have never existed had you not had the conversation in the first place. No one tells us that. Everyone, in fact, they tell us the opposite. They say, don't talk to strangers, all right? Strangers are really bad. Oh, you know what? If you ever want to learn something, pull out your device, just use your device. And whatever you do, shut the whole world off. Don't meet new people. Don't talk to them in meaningful ways. Never ask questions about career or whatever. You know, that's just too taboo. Never get personal. So we're actually taught the exact opposite. And this is something I've dedicated my life to. I've written a book about powerful conversations and the importance of building relationships one conversation at a time. I've really had to become an expert in this field over the last 20 years because I've just become so passionate about it. And it really saddens me to see so many people that I meet who are successful in their careers. They're happy enough, but they really don't have that skill to build powerful human relationships through conversation. For example, they don't get taught, I'll give you a couple of little things here, about how important it is to make other people feel interesting and intriguing and exciting and important and that they matter. They don't get taught that. They don't get taught that if you make people feel those types of things, you increase your chances of those individuals beginning to respect, admire, value, and like you. They don't get taught that, but this is something I speak about in my books and my presentations. They don't get taught in school that, you know, there's 5 things that you need to aim for when you're trying to create a powerful conversation with somebody. You want to learn something new about that individual. You want to make the conversation meaningful to them as a beginning point. You want to make your conversations with other people the most memorable conversation that they had all day. You want to always find out what you have in common with that person, no matter what color of skin they have, no matter what sexual orientation they may have. You've got something in common with everyone. Did you know that? Conversation can get you there. Or number 5, no one was ever really taught, hey, by the way, when you have conversations with individuals, try whatever you can do to make them more fun. And those are the 5 components of a powerful conversation. Learn something new. Make it meaningful to the other person. Make it the most memorable conversation they have all day. Find out what you have in common with that person and make it more fun. These are things that are told to us. And yet it should be the number one thing that we learn because it's those relationships we then build with the people that we know and especially the people we don't know that leads us to greater success. It allows us to choose the opportunity of letting people influence our happiness. Because it's human beings that have always been at the root of your happiness. It's human beings that in many cases led you to that new job or that new opportunity or that new adventure, that new person you fall in love with, if you trace it all back quite often, not every single time, but almost always, it's a person. And so if we don't know people, and if we don't speak to them about anything meaningful, how can we let people help us live happy lives? And when it comes to happiness, there are 5 pillars of happiness that human beings can influence. And yet we almost never give human beings the chance to ever do it because of the lives that we've chosen to live, the paradigm thinking that we've locked our brains into. Okay, so the 5 pillars of happiness, and I'm actually coming to the end of the presentation now. The 5 pillars of happiness are your spiritual life, your physical life, your intellectual life, your relational life, and your emotional life. And if you can make all 5 of these areas of your life vibrate on the highest frequency, you are then the one who is making sure that you are leading yourself to the highest levels of happiness. And the best way to make those 5 areas of your life vibrate on the highest frequency is to let the people you either know, or especially the ones you don't know, help you get there. To let them show you how to do it, to tap into their knowledge, to tap into what it is that they can do to lift our lives up. Because that's all people have ever done for you, and that's all that people have ever done for me. That's what people do. And yet they're the greatest resource of all time, and we miss it. I mean, think about spirituality. What is spirituality? Well, that is your connection to something bigger. That's your connection to your version of God. That's your connection to outer space. It's your connection to that energy that you just can't put your finger on in the room when you're having this incredible connection with a stranger you've never met before. It's that feeling that overwhelms you when you're listening to a song that just makes you cry and you have no idea where it came from. There's all this beautiful energy and all this beautiful stuff that's happening around us. It happens in coincidences. It happens in laughter. And yet spirituality is something that we don't stop and think whether or not a person could increase our vibration spiritually. But isn't it always a person who takes you into nature? That's a spiritual moment. Isn't it a person who takes you camping or suggests that you go camping? Isn't it a person who invites you to their cottage to lay on the deck and stare at the stars? Isn't it a person who challenges you on some of your limited beliefs around spirituality and tries to get you to expand the way you see the universe? Of course it is. It's people that really influence our spiritual lives. And yet we don't give them the opportunity very often to really do it. You look at your physical life. Obviously, all the science and research shows that when you have increased your levels of physical activity, you eat better, those kinds of things, that you lead a happier life. The endorphins and the chemicals that our body lets off when we are exercising actually makes us feel better. When we're stronger, we feel better. When we have greater mobility, we feel better. When we have less joint pain, we feel better. And all of this is usually influenced by people. It's a person who introduces us to a new way of living. It's a person who invites us out for a jog. It's a person who we have within our world who is the same age, comes from the same background, who we're inspired by. And when we see them doing something physically active, it makes us want to do the same thing. Let's move on to your intellectual life. Your intellectual life is a part of your life that most people don't actually actively seek to make vibrate on the highest levels. Once you graduate from university, besides reading a book from time to time, how often are you getting a weekly level, a weekly dose of intellectual stimulation? And you see, when we get knowledge, knowledge helps us make better decisions. Better decisions helps us become happier. Knowledge helps us avoid the things that are not good for us, and that makes us happier. Knowledge helps us improve on the person that we were yesterday. And as we improve, we start feeling like we're getting closer to our own meaning and our own purpose. And it feels good to improve. And that raises our level of happiness. So we need the knowledge. And so how much time do we have to read the newspaper or to watch documentaries? A little bit, but not a lot. It's a person who's going to tell you a story that changes the way you see something. It's a person who's going to share information about an experience that they have had firsthand that gives you the knowledge to change your life and to lead yourself to greater happiness. And let's move on now to relationships. Relationships, as you've heard me say, is the #1 marker of a person's happiness. And yet I always find myself curious as to why it is that people don't make building new relationships part of their yearly list of goals. knowing that they bring them such great levels of happiness. In fact, researchers have discovered now that they can better predict how long you're going to live, or whether or not you'll have a disease in this lifetime, or whether or not you will suffer from mental health issues by understanding the strength of your human relationships better than they can by knowing whether you smoke cigarettes, what kind of food you eat, and how much you exercise. The strength of your human relationships is now a better predictor of happiness, a better predictor of illness. Harvard came out with a study not too long ago. They said that loneliness, and they marked that as not having strong human relationships. You can know 1,000 people and still feel lonely. They've discovered that loneliness on a physiological level, they've now discovered, is actually the same as smoking 14 cigarettes a day. And yet we hear this information and we don't go, holy crap, I need to meet new people. I need to have more meaningful conversations. We just go back to the same conversations we've always had. And the last but not least is your emotional vibration. It's people that influence our emotions. It's people that give us a shoulder to cry on. It's people who acknowledge that what we're feeling is real and important. It's people who share an experience that's similar to ours that makes us feel emotionally connected to them. And yet so many of us are so tightly wound with our emotions that very rarely do we ever have any type of avenue by which to get those emotions out. And by doing that, we miss out on one of the greatest markers of happiness. So what if you did know more people? What if you not only knew more people, but what if you found yourself in more powerful and interesting conversations with those individuals? How would that affect your life? Because you've got to eventually come to terms with one of the harsh realities of life, and it's not easy. No one likes to hear this. But the people in your world, in your orbit, can only do so much for you. You know, they're limited by what they know. They're limited by what they've done and the experiences they've had. There's only so many countries they've traveled to. There's only so much knowledge that they've obtained. And many times they've imparted a lot of that to you. And also they're busy living their own lives. So they don't always have the time to dedicate it towards us, to always be our cheerleaders and to always be sharing opportunities with us. We're also not usually having powerful conversations with these people. Usually we're having like logical conversations with these individuals. In fact, they did a study with husbands and wives, and they discovered that I think it was like 50 or 60% of the conversations they have with each other are literally just logistics conversations. Did you put the trash out? Are the kids okay? Do you think we should invest in this? It's not usually actual real connections. And I think that many of you watching this, if you're over a certain age, you'll realize that meeting quality people and the frequency with which we meet quality people becomes harder and harder as time passes. And so we get older, we meet less people, we have less meaningful and interesting conversations, and we end up missing out on what life can bring us. And that is where I'm going to start closing off this conversation tonight. I'm now going to share with you really kind of my conclusion to all this and what you can do specifically to increase your level of vibration in those 5 areas through the conversations you're having with people. And then for those of you who really want to take it to the next level, in about 5 minutes from now, I'll be sharing something with you that I've created. It's probably the best thing that I know I've ever done. And I guess you'd have to find out yourself, but I'm going to share that with you in a few minutes because it's something that I have put years of thinking into, and I'm finally launching it tonight. And anyone who gets involved with this will definitely see the change coming their way. So what have I said? I've talked about how we live in a world where happiness isn't taught in education. Happiness isn't taught in the conversations we're having with other people. Happiness is robbed from us because people are trying to continuously steer us away for their own personal agendas. I talked about how happiness is 5 main areas of life: our spiritual life, our physical life, our intellectual life, our relational life, and our emotional life. And I've talked about how in those 5 areas, if you trace back all the good things that have ever happened to you, or the times when you were really humming along in one of those categories, that it was almost always a person that led you to an idea, that led you to another person, that led you to an experience, that led you to a thought, that led you to a moment of inspiration, that led you to that thing that made you feel good, that thing that brought you happiness. You trace it all back and it comes to a person. And now I've been talking to you about how we live in a world where, especially during a pandemic, we don't meet anybody. And even before the pandemic, and it'll be the same for a lot of people after the pandemic, they'll have their small little orbit of individuals who they tap into for everything. They tap into for all 5 areas of happiness. They tap into them for all of their emotional exchange. They tap into all of that for them, for all of their physical inspiration, their intellectual stimulation, their spiritual vibration, and they tap into them for all of their relational needs. And while we all do that, it's only a very small number of people who recognize that the more quality people that they meet and the more quality conversations they have with those people, the higher quality of life they live, the more ideas that come their way, the more opportunities that come their way, the more perspectives, and the more they open their minds to a much bigger world that's out there. And it is the world that you've always known exists. And yet your little world, your orbit, which we all have, makes it impossible to tap into it because it's only this big. And so right now, before I give you the opportunity to really get involved with something that would, in fact, satisfy this need that we have to get into this bigger world, I'm going to let you know how you can do it by yourself. I'm going to let you know what you can do specifically if you don't want to get involved with the next thing that I'm going to share with you. I need a little bit of water. If you really want to take your happiness to the next level, if you really want 2021 to be a better year, and if you really want to tap into the one easiest thing that you can do to change your life, my suggestion to you is that you start making it mandatory for yourself to start having powerful conversations with every high quality person you know. And then use those conversations as a way of opening your mind, opening your heart, and opening up your existence to a greater level of possibilities for yourself. So number one, you have to accept that the people within your world, as amazing as they are, can only do so much for you. And secondly, you have to recognize, though, that they are a resource that's still, for the most part, untapped. Because the conversations that most people have with their friends and their family have been about the weather, about career, and about small things. So the first piece of advice I have for every person right now, and if you're writing anything down, start writing this down. You want to start with the people that you know. And you want to start literally setting up conversations with those individuals where you ask permission to have a deeper conversation with them. Tell them you saw this seminar. Tell them that you watched this presentation. Tell them that this is something that's important to you, and then compliment them and say, I've chosen you as one of the most high quality people that I know in my life. It could be your mom, your dad, your friend, whoever, coworker. And then ask them if you could sit down with them and ask them deeper questions because you like them enough to want to connect with them on a deeper level. Do not just hope it's going to happen at the barbecue. Do not just hope it's going to happen at the wedding next summer when you're sitting next to somebody. You've got to ask for permission. You've got to set your intentions. And you got to take the people in your life and actually start setting up times to go on conversational dates that both of you understand why it is that you're there. Just doing that by itself will open you up to an entirely different world. The second thing you got to do is you really start having to get involved in stuff. And it's like we're told this when we go to high school. If you really want to make friends, if you want to have a great time in high school, make sure you get involved in the clubs and the sports and the activities. And we did it. And those who did it look back at high school and like, high school was awesome. Those who didn't do it look back and go, high school was shit. It's not rocket science, okay? Clubs, book reading organizations, volleyball teams, sports clubs, recreational sports, whatever it is that you like, you gotta start actually setting yourself up to get involved. The best thing you can do is to join groups where you don't know many people. You can get your friends in your little orbit together and create your own little soccer team, or you can go in and you can join the recreational soccer team as a single person, and they will just assign you to a team. Instantly, you just open yourself up to a whole new world. Instantly, you've joined a group of individuals who are all now doing something that you like, which is to play soccer, to play volleyball, to read books. Okay, that's number two. You've got to now, at the end of this webinar, pick things that you're going to do when the pandemic is finished that you're going to join. Number three, I got a couple more and then I'm going to close this up. Neighborhood associations. I live in a street where we have street barbecues. We actually have a Facebook page. We get together. We talk to each other. Do we have the deepest, most meaningful conversations every single day? No. But some of those conversations do lead me to a new sense of knowledge, to a new opportunity, to just even something that's happening in a city that I wasn't even aware of. Okay? If you live anywhere, create a neighborhood association. If you're on a condo, create an association with the people on your floor. Yeah, be that weirdo who puts something on everyone's door and says, I am really interested in getting to know my neighbors more. I believe that everyone in this building is really cool in their own little way. If everyone's open to it, we can start having Zoom calls, or after the pandemic, we can start meeting face-to-face in the party room. Okay? Start tapping into your neighbors and start having powerful conversations with them. Here's one of the last two ones. Last two that I want to share with you. Number one, become the social captain of your social circle. I'm going to say it again. Become the social captain of your social circle. I've got a friend named Harry. He might even be watching right now. Him and I have led pretty cool lives. In fact, in our social groups, we're kind of the cooler people in our groups. Guess who organizes everything? Us. We are the ones that are always organizing the group barbecues. We're always organizing people to get together to go camping. We're always organizing people to get together to have conversations. We're always doing this. And one day we both laughed about it over lunch because we both realized that sometimes it used to irritate us, but then we realized I'd rather be the one organizing it because I get to kind of do it my way. And so become the social captain of your social network. Harry, by the way, is over the age of 70. I think he just turned 75. And super successful guy, super happy guy, has an amazing life. I did ask him one time, what would you say was one of the keys to your success? And he said, easy, lunches. He just says, every week I try to set up 3 or 4 lunches with people and just have great conversations with them. It always leads me to amazing things in my life. All the opportunities that have come my way are with people I've had lunches with. How many lunches do you have with strangers? How many lunches do you have with people that you kind of know but never really had a meaningful conversation with? What would that do for you if you had 100 of those this year? And they could all be over Zoom. You can still have lunch on a video chat. Last but not least, friendship dates. Okay, start setting up friendship dates. Go to somebody who you meet, or a coworker, or someone you think is cool. Maybe it's a friend of a friend. Say, look, I do these friendship dates every so often. It's never romantic. It's only with the intention of just having meaningful conversation because it's something I value. And the person, once you let them know why you're doing it, they will most likely, not always, but they'll join you. And when they join you, you start having conversations with people that will change the course of your life. So I'm going to say it again before I bring you to the closing of this webinar and to share with you the little secret that I want to share with you. Start with people that you know, okay? You haven't tapped into that resource well enough yet. So start letting them know your intentions and have powerful conversations with them. Number two, make sure that you start looking for things that you can actually join. Do not wait for the end of the pandemic. There's lots of online clubs that you can join and start having conversations with those people. Join as a single person. Neighborhood associations. People sometimes they'll have a chat with their neighbor on the street. Maybe once in a while have a glass of wine with somebody. But it's not the same as going out into your neighborhood and literally inviting people to start coming together on a monthly basis, which is usually the best amount of time. Once a month is good. Become the social captain of your social community. Stop waiting for everyone else to do it and start organizing these things yourself. And last but not least, do what you got to do to really start creating friendship dates. Friendship dates will literally it's amazing how much it'll change the course of your life. And that brings me to the close of the presentation component of tonight. And now I'm going to move into sharing a little secret with you. Something that I've created that I know is literally going to change the course of your life, once again, if you let it. But before I do that, if anyone is going to be taking off now, I want to say thank you. Thank you for joining. I appreciate your time. And I'm so glad that you took the time to invest in your life by not just sitting there watching the Game of Thrones for the third time, but rather learning something that will hopefully bring you greater levels of happiness. The 5 vibrations of your life, they have to be really humming along. And it's always going to be people that are going to help them hum along. And quite often, it's going to be people outside of your world that will help you get there. So 2021 and for the rest of your life, make meeting new people, meeting quality people, and having quality conversations with them your number one focus, with the goal of increasing your level of happiness and thus your level of success in life. Do that, and it will completely change the game. And now, this webinar was created because I genuinely believe that everything I just talked about, while if you do it, will have a big impact, it's hard as hell to do. It's difficult to meet new people when you're busy with your job. Maybe you're busy being a parent, and maybe you're busy being in a relationship. Maybe you're busy with your friends. And so how do you do it? And I've been giving a lot of thinking, a lot of thought to this, so much that it's causing me to no longer even know how to use the word thinking and thought interchangeably. I have been asking myself, I know and I've seen firsthand what happens in the lives of other people when they meet new people and they have powerful conversations with them. I've seen example after example of ideas that come people's way or opportunities that come people's way. And I thought, is there a way that I can expedite that? Is there a way that I can make this happen faster? Is there something that, as an entrepreneur, based on all the different programs that I've created, is there something new that I could create that would really service that need? And so after asking myself, I finally came up with the answer. And the answer is the More. We now have an organization called the More. And the More is for people who really don't want just more from life. They want the more than the more that there actually is. And so the More is an organization. Okay, this is going to offend a few people, but it's an organization for people over the age of 30. And if you are under the age of 30, don't worry. One day I will create this program for you, or one day, don't worry, you will turn 30 and we'll be waiting for you. And if you're under the age of 30, stick around, because you can listen to this right now and ask yourself whether or not it's something that's going to be good for you in the future. It's for people over the age of 30, and it is for people who want to become more engaged in a bigger community, and they want to increase the speed with which adventure and excitement and happiness and love and opportunity start showing up in their life. That they're successful people, they're good people, they're happy people, but they know that life is short, and they know that if they were to get engaged in something that put them in contact with the right kinds of people, that they could speed that process up for more good things coming to them. And so this is the reason why I created the More. It's really, created with the intention of just increasing people's happiness, expediting happiness. And the concept is very, very simple. The concept is one where it's a membership-based society. You pay a monthly membership fee. Just like anything in life, you got to pay to play. And your monthly membership gives you quite a few things. But the first and foremost and biggest thing that you get, the rest I'll tell you about in a second, is that you get to join a community of vetted individuals who are all interested in self-development, personal development, professional development. They're all interested in living life on a higher vibration. And doing so and being that kind of person, they come together and will be coming together starting in 2 weeks, once a week on Monday nights at 7 o'clock, to join in a conversation with other people about big topics. And the way it works is simple. At the beginning of each week, every Monday, I will teach you something. I will teach you something I've learned as an entrepreneur. I will teach you something I've learned as a dad or as a person on planet Earth. Many times I will invite individuals who are in my network, who are experts in their own field, to come in and talk to me while you get to watch while they share something that they've learned with you. That lasts for about 20 or 30 minutes. Then I press the magic button and you automatically randomly get put into different groups of 3 to 5 people. And these are all individuals who I say have been vetted, and these are people who will instantly dive into the questions that week surrounding that topic. And every topic will always be chosen based on its relationship to the 5 pillars of happiness: spirituality, physicality, your intellectual stimulation, your relationships, and your emotional well-being. And so each week you're having a conversation with new people who are smart, who are successful, who have traveled, who have seen things in the world, who have got experience. And you're having a conversation about a big, meaty topic with the intention that at the end of your conversation with those individuals, you have increased the size of your network, you have learned new things, you've emotionally connected with somebody, you've maybe been inspired to change the way that you are with respect to your physicality or maybe the way that you see the world. You've been introduced to a new possibility when it comes to increasing the vibration of your spirituality. No matter what it is, something always good comes from a good conversation. And so that happens every single week. So I teach with guests, I bring people together, and then in between every Monday, we have a forum, a place where you can meet privately so that you can learn what aha moments people had within their other groups. And you can share the aha moments with the rest of the group that you had from your conversation. As well, in those forums, you can see a picture of an individual that you was in your group, and you can reach out and you can say, hey, so-and-so, I really loved your perspective on what you were talking about. Would you ever want to have a friendship date online? Let's have a chat. Let's go deeper down that rabbit hole. I'd love to learn more about what it was that you were saying about that. And so this is the crux of the organization. The more and more it gives you more people, more quality individuals, and more powerful conversations to live more of what life has to offer and to expedite your happiness. But there's more that I'm going to actually add on to this. You see, one of the things I want everyone who is still watching right now to know is that I have a database of about 10,000 people from around the world who, for the last 10 years, I have constantly stayed in touch with and sent videos to and dedicated my life to in helping them reach new levels of success. Well, for 2021 and moving forward, while they will still hear from me, if you are those people watching, you will still hear from me. But for the most part, I'm going to bring my focus to the more. I'm going to be giving everything I've got to those within this organization. And so one extra thing I'm going to do on top of the 4 weekly conversations in the month is I'm going to be doing one coaching event every single month. This is where you inundate me with any questions you've got about entrepreneurism, relationships, business, doesn't matter, travel, doesn't matter. I will then answer the questions you've sent me in advance, the best that I possibly can based on my own experience. And if I don't know the answer, I will tap into my very large network of very, very smart people, in many cases smarter than me, to get you your answer. So I will be doing a group coaching session once a month as well. As well, for those who sign up, I have created a self-development, professional development video series where I teach you things like how to facilitate conversations between groups, which you can then use at the dinner table with your family or in the boardroom. I have a video series where I teach you actually how to have powerful conversations with people, no matter who that individual may be, whether it's a client, a customer, a colleague, a friend, or a lover. And I have a bunch of other video series that I won't get into right now, but they're all about personal development and professional development. So you're going to get access to those as well. Some small things that are kind of cool is that you're going to get an I More t-shirt. All right. Anybody who becomes a member of this organization gets a cool t-shirt that says I More, which I've learned that in life that when you wear a t-shirt like that, it makes people go, what does it mean to I More? Well, welcome to expanding your network. As well, people who sign up are going to be getting a copy of my book, You Should Have Asked, The Art of Powerful Conversation. Then on top of that, I know, can you believe it? I mean, like really, I'm going to give you my left arm. You get my left arm, all right? First person who comes in gets my left arm. We're going to have bonus events, okay, throughout the year. that you'll be able to have access to. There'll be themed events. Sometimes we'll be getting into certain subjects. We'll always be taking your feedback, and I will create those events for you throughout the year. Finally, we are, after the pandemic, this group, which is already 100 people strong, we are going to be doing retreats just for these individuals that are focused around powerful conversation, trips to different places around the world. And I have been to a lot of fun places that I'll be taking you guys to, as well as conferences that we'll be producing after the pandemic, once everyone's vaccinated and we can enjoy being in each other's company again. So that's what the More is. And it is a membership-based society. And what I've done is I've actually priced it at a price that I see as being really affordable. In fact, I'm going to be giving a discount, an even greater discount for those of you who are on this call tonight. And we're going to be charging, it's an $83 a month program. And for everybody who signs up tonight, you're not going to be charged tax on that for the next year, okay? You're not being charged tax. We really just wanted to make this affordable so that we could make this a bit of a no-brainer idea for people. I mean, you go to yoga once a week, it's 20 bucks a week, and that's 80 bucks a month. Or a gym membership is 60, 70 bucks a month. Or the good ones are, much more than that. Or if you're like me, a nice bottle of wine from the LCBO is about 20 bucks a week. So that's 80 bucks a month. And, we were just thinking about, what kinds of things people spend money on. And I felt like $83 was a number that is a bit of a no-brainer. I mean, literally one conversation can change the course of your life. One conversation can introduce you to an opportunity that just really super increases your level of happiness. And so to us, we decided to go with $83 a month as a way of making sure that we are getting the right people, but at the same time, not making it inaccessible. And that price will be going up as the number of members that we have increases. Right now we have about 100. It's going to be soon getting up to about 200 people. So now would be the time to get in, because it won't be long until those prices are going to increase. One of the things I want you to understand is that for those of you who are listening to this right now going, my God, so I'd get on a phone call, a video call every week. I'd meet new people. I'd have powerful conversations with strangers. Okay, you kind of got me a little interested here. You're enticing. I want you to know that you have to be in this for the long term. Okay, I mean, you can pay a monthly fee and you can cancel your membership anytime you want and just go for 1 month. But if you join this, be in this for the long game, as long as you can go, and hopefully forever. And I say that because it's that conversation that you have in 2 months from now or 3 months from now, or as you get better at this and as you start vibing and as you start connecting with more and more people, that's when the magic happens. It might happen week 1 for you, but more likely it happens much further down the line. You'll always be laughing and you'll always be learning new things. But then as you get into this, you start realizing, oh yeah, I'm beginning to see my world changing now. I am having more success in business. I am meeting more people. I am becoming a more spiritual person. I am more intellectually stimulated each week just doing this one thing than I am doing anything else throughout the week. These people that I'm meeting are becoming friends for life. These people are becoming business partners. These people are becoming customers. These people are really changing my life. And so as I close, I will say this. The choice is now yours. I mean, I'm doing it with or without you. It's happening. And so I want you to really give this some thought. And I would encourage you not to give it too much thought, because give it a little bit of thought, like for the next 5 or 10 minutes. But I would jump on the website tonight and really just be like, God damn it, I'm doing something. I am doing something for 2021. I'm changing my life. I couldn't have set this up any better for any of you. We have been working on this for so long, and it's a culmination of everything I've been thinking about for so many years. And this is your chance to really invest in happiness. I can assure you that as you expand your network through the More, and as you meet more vetted, high-quality individuals, and as you have more powerful conversations with those people, your life can't not change. You can't not be exposed to this much knowledge and ideas and emotional connections and opportunities and adventures, and not at the end of a year and at the end of a life be a different person. And so if this speaks to you, if this is something you want to join me on, if you want to come down the ride with me, well, get ready, because the next year is going to be unlike any other year you've ever had, and it's about to take you into a whole new life. It's a year where, especially during a pandemic, it's hard to meet new people, and you're going to meet a lot of them. It starts in 2 weeks on the 18th, 2 weeks from tonight. So if you're interested, if you want to do something cool, you want to take it to the next level, you can go to the website. You can see everything I have already told you. You can reread it. You can check out the benefits. There's a bunch of boxes there that will tell you what you're going to get. And you can just click on the membership opportunity, hit join, and join myself and 100 other people that have already come on board that I've personally vetted, and get ready for conversations that will literally change the course of your life. And if you don't join, then start creating conversations with as many people as you possibly can based on the amount of access you have to people, and start doing what you need to do to really increase the size of your orbit, to increase the size of your world, to take your happiness into your own hands. 2020 was a hell of a year, and 2021 can be awesome. And so I hope that you join me in this new adventure. I'm bloody giddy. I can't even tell you. Tomorrow morning, I wake up and all day, all I think about is the more. And Wednesday and Thursday, you ever put my mind to something like that often, for that many hours? It's going to be a party, y'all. It's going to be a life-changing party. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. Go to the website. You can see it on the screen here. Feel free to join. It's a very, very small investment for a very, very big impact. And I would love to have you guys on board and to join me for this ride. It's going to be a great time. All right, folks, I'm taking off. I'm ending the session, but I hope you have a great night. And I look forward to meeting many of you face to face as we have our own little intimate party starting on Monday nights at 7 o'clock starting January 18th. Get ready for week 1. You're going to meet some cool people. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye-bye.